Welcome to Pathway to Property, your go-to podcast for building a property portfolio and breaking down property markets.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our next episode for the Pathway to Property podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Lachlan, Vidler. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Clifford. Lukey, how are you, mate? It's been a bit of a journey.
It has been a journey, mate, and I think, this is the last episode for the series, and it's gone in the blink of an eye. But it's
series or season?
Well, season. Let's call it the season.
Yeah, you'll call it season?
But
I know things that you don't about that, but we'll see. We'll see.
I see. Well, mate, it's been a journey so far. The year's just flown by, but very, very excited for this episode. I guess before we kind of jump into everything though, there's been a lot happening on your side. So you kind of want to fill in the gaps on what's going on in the world of Mr. Vidler.
Mate, thank you. Well, it's we're getting very close now. We've now finished filming the Channel 9 show that I'm on, Budget Battles. I think we talked about it a few times.
Yeah.
So we've now officially finished filming, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
And I don't know exactly the date that this podcast will go out, but if it's anywhere near where I think it's going to go out, we might actually be seeing a premiere within a not too short a time frame to this podcast.
Can you give us a bit of a range in terms of when the first kind of episode's going to get released?
I've heard whispers. Like I said, hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, some of the actual advertising and marketing has come out. So I can't give an exact date, but hopefully, we're now maybe down to weeks, not months.
Interesting.
Hopefully.
Very good. Very good. Well, very exciting, mate.
Yes.
This episode, exciting episode ahead.
Yes.
So I think, with this whole podcast series, we've been really, really deliberate about how we've structured the episodes.
Yes.
We've really wanted to take our listeners on the journey on what it's like to start from the very beginning all the way through to buying an investment property and then scaling and then exit strategies and things like that. But we thought it'd be a really, really fantastic idea to actually bring somebody in that's gone through the process so that our listeners can actually understand what it's like firsthand from someone that's actually gone through that journey.
Absolutely. So I think it's been a year-long journey here. We are up to episode 12 and hopefully there is still a little bit more to come. But as you said, and I think you summed it up really nicely, we have been taking everybody on this journey. And I think that it's one thing to talk about the journey. And obviously we sit here in a professional capacity, being able to talk about what we see and be able to give people, let's call it the textbook answers to things. But it's another thing entirely when it comes down to people actually being on that path and actually practically implementing some of that.
Yeah.
So, I'm very happy to be saying that we've got a special guest in with us today. And our special guest is Aaron. Aaron has started his property portfolio. Aaron has been through so many of the things that we've spoken about across each episode of this show. And I think that having Aaron come in today to talk to us about some of his experiences, his learnings, his successes, his failures, it's going to be fantastic because above all else, I hear he's a pretty good bloke as well. And hopefully he'll sound all right on the podcast as well. But Aaron, mate, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure.
Well, Aaron, why don't we kick it off? This episode is probably less about what Luke and I think about different things. Today, it's a lot more about what you think about different things. So before we get into it, maybe it'd be great if you could just give everybody who's listening just a little bit about yourself, your own background and your own investment journey as well.
Yep. So I come from a gym management background. I currently work for a pretty large Anytime fitness group. So that's been a pretty solid journey for me there over the last sort of 5-6 years. My investment journey has been one where the last maybe 12 months, I've been strongly thinking about getting into a property. It wasn't until I saw you guys on social media at the start of the year that I wanted to go, you know what, I think this is the right time to pull the trigger. Starting a young family, I had my beautiful daughter at the start of the year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It really tipped me over to go, I think it's time to do something. Spent all of last year trying to figure it out and just really couldn't get there myself. I reached out and sort of wanted some expert advice and here we are.
Yeah. Wow. And I guess like you just mentioned, your daughter was a massive motivation for kind of
big time,
shifting gears and really focusing on, trying to build something for yourself.
For sure.
I guess what was your mindset prior to all of that though when it came to property investing?
Oh, look, I mean, I've always wanted to get into property. I do wish I could have got into it sooner.
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit about timing. You know, you go through that whole period where your wife's pregnant and go, what are we going to do next?
Yeah.
I guess trying to juggle that and prepare for a child took a lot of my time. And it wasn't until you get your leave and you go, you know what, you do have a lot more time on your hands to sort of figure some stuff out.
Yeah.
And that's what led to me really going, all right, I've got to sit down and do something. But yeah, the year leading into it, it was definitely on my mind. Just couldn't really figure it out myself, I'm not going to lie. It was difficult. Yeah.
Well, I mean, thanks for telling us a little bit about your background as well, because something that I love about podcasting and love about storytelling is that usually when somebody's telling their story, doesn't matter whether you have the exact same journey or a journey completely different, you can really identify parts of your journey in what they've gone through. And like you've said, you know, you've started a young family, you've been time poor, you work for a big Anytime fitness group, you know, so you're obviously a very practical guy yourself. You know, you like to get out and do things. And also, you know, you've been at the early stage of your journey. So thank you for sharing that. And for me, the first thought that I come to out of that is you've had so much change this year, you know, let alone last year as well. And I'm sure over the course of your life, you know, you've had ups and downs and things going on. What for you do you think were some of your biggest concerns or fears about starting your property investing journey?
I feel like the unknown. I mean, you know, ideally we would have liked to purchase something in Sydney, and that just got quite difficult.
To live in or to invest in?
Live in, invest in. Like obviously we're here now, and with my situation, you know, we are going to stay in Sydney. But to invest into Sydney got quite difficult. You know, it came to crunch time. I know I'd said to you, Luke, a bunch of times, you know, we were thinking about units and purchasing a unit to live in, and everyone around me said it's just not a great idea. And I still strongly believe that. So the biggest fear was knowing I had to invest outside of the state and not knowing what those markets look like or what areas to look into. So the unknown was my biggest fear, and not knowing what the process was. You know, you think about wanting to buy property, you go to the bank, say, give me some money and I'll knock on a door and buy the house. It just doesn't work like that. So not knowing the strategy behind how to find something. But then once getting that guidance, it was awesome.
I guess just so things are a little bit more relatable for our listeners. So, you know, Aaron's a young guy. He's, you know, in his early 30s. I guess my question to you, Aaron, is you mentioned that before, having your daughter was kind of that light bulb moment for you to kind of really knuckle down and figure out, you know, what you want to do moving forward to build wealth. But let's kind of backtrack like 5, even 10 years from now. Like, what was your mentality back then? And what do you think was holding you back from getting in a lot earlier as well?
I feel like a lot of my personal situation stopped me from, I guess, investing my money. And just the knowledge gap, honestly, man. Like just not knowing where to start. And going, all right, how do I get into the property market? Stopped me from investing earlier. Also, I feel that the last maybe 12 to 18 months, a lot has come together for me in my personal life. Financially, with my wife, you know, we got married and, you know, we're starting a family. I feel like a lot of those external factors started to line up a lot better for me. That gave me the opportunity to go, you know what, it is time to invest. The 5 years prior to that was just a lot of ups and downs, man. So that took away a lot of me going, what does my future look like? Because you just don't think about that future so often. You're very much in the now. But yeah, when these things start to happen,
because I know that when like we've had multiple conversations, especially before you came on board with us, and you were like, man, I wish I did this earlier.
For sure.
I wish I did this 8 years earlier,
100%.
Right? But it's that, you know, like you mentioned, that lack of confidence around like the knowledge piece. Because at the end of the day, you're arguably making, you know, one of the biggest financial decisions that you're going to make in your life. So you want to make sure that the decision that you make isn't going to turn into a mistake.
For sure.
Right?
So coming out of that, what I'm thinking about is you've had a lot going on. You've then got yourself into a fractionally better position from where you were. You've then had some even better things happen, got yourself into an even better position. But it sounds like there was a lot going on in your life. So what was it was there something that happened, or how would you describe that clear decision to go, you know what, I'm now going to make that leap into property investing?
I think financially it started to make sense. I had some really good guidance from a good broker of mine that helped me piece together what we could finally afford. I guess trying to work towards a solid career as well. I think figuring out an investment going, I now need to pay for something moving forward.
Yeah.
I have some really strong stability with my job, which gave me the confidence to go, all right, it is now time to pull that trigger. You procrastinate a lot. It's a big investment. To answer your question, a lot of things started to align over the last sort of 12 months that we knew we could afford an investment, but really, really strong guidance from a broker as well.
So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that whenever we talk to people, we'll often hear very similar stories where, people, especially who might be a little bit younger. And I mean, at the end of the day, early 30s, it's you've still been out of school for 15 years. It's not as though we're talking to somebody who's like 22 and we're going, when you're at that point or something like that. So you've still led a very large chunk of your young adult life by this point. But we hear that story so often about just, it wasn't there. Then I made a few very specific decisions and it's now put me into a position to be able to move forward. And I want to make it really clear to everyone, whilst Aaron, absolutely is a client of ours, and I'm hoping that we'll have a very long and strong relationship with him. Today is not just about what he's done with us. Today is about Aaron's journey. But to kick that off, you mentioned that you found us through social media.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a bit more about how you did find us, through that social media sort of, and how you did come to be open to exploring some help and then help from us. And then what actually made you decide to work with us? And before we jump into that, for everyone listening, today we're going to be taking through a bit of a journey with Aaron, as everyone knows, but we're going to be linking it back as best we can to other episodes that we've done throughout this series, because everything we want to talk to Aaron about, this episode is really about everything we've been discussing for the last 10 or 11 episodes of this series, which is about how to go from scratch to today. So in terms of building out a winning team, which Aaron decided Atlas was going to be part of that, you can throw back to episode 6 to have a listen to that. It was a really, really good episode. But now that I've done the little podcast sales pitch to everyone, Aaron, if you wouldn't mind now answering the question.
Social media, Instagram ads. Kept popping up. I had reached out, I can't remember the name, but I reached out to a few people prior, and I just didn't get the response that I was looking for. So saw the ads, inquired through the ad, and then got a response from the team. And it was pretty prompt, it was pretty quick, and I just felt the first onboarding call with Luke was awesome. Just gave me some pretty good reassurances of what the journey would potentially look like early on, and answered a lot of my questions. So, obviously, like, what does it all look like when you're going to invest into a property, because you don't have an idea, and getting those questions answered early on was awesome. And then I guess it took me a few months to actually get around back to it. I had that January off. We spoke in Jan. I think through Feb, I was just trying to really figure out my finances, going like, is this going to work?
You also needed to sell the missus on it as well.
I did. And I will praise her. She's been fantastic through this whole journey. It isn't an easy one to go, hey, I really think we should invest into a property that's not in Sydney. But once I got her head wrapped around it, I just needed to sort of sit down and figure it out on our end. And then, you touched base multiple times, man, and just made sure that I was okay with where I was at.
I know that you were massive on like making sure that the
numbers. I guess thank you for saying that, because I'm a numbers guy, man. That's my job, and making sure that it all stacked up so that we weren't overcapitalizing or going, we could go nuts and buy something crazy and put us in a position that it would hurt us. It was a lot of back and forth with the broker and then yourself, and then just making sure that we stacked everything up correctly. That's been awesome.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, we always joke about Luke. He's like a dog with a bone. But you know what? In a great way. I'll say,
sure.
And I think it really comes out in the way that you're telling that story, because, you obviously had a very particular idea of what you needed to see to be able to trust that somebody was going to help you. But also, I think more importantly, of what you just needed to be able to take the leap, because you could be sitting in front of Richard Branson, but I get the feeling that if you weren't told the right information, it doesn't matter the mouthpiece that's giving it. For
correct.
you know what you want, right? And I think that's obviously really key that for anyone listening in, if you're going to be working with any professional, you've got to make sure that you feel like you're getting the information that you want. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Luke shared some really good insights on how the process. I sound like a broken record, but how the process worked. But that was important for me. Some people aren't overcritical and they just need to see a bigger picture and they go, yeah, that's great, sounds good. Let's just get the ball rolling. I needed the nuts and bolts, and getting provided the nuts and bolts early on. It really helped. It really helped for sure.
I think this would be a really good question an answer from you, but a question from me for the listeners to hear is, there's a lot of conflicting advice out there in terms of what you should do, like what kind of avenues you should go down, types of properties, price ranges, how you should structure it. I guess what kind of gave you the confidence based on like the conversation that you had with us?
In regards to like finally getting into the property?
Just like getting everything set up correctly.
Just the guidance of what it looks like to build a team to help you purchase a property. In someone's mind, it's like, hey, we'll just go to Atlas, buy the property and see you later. That's not how that worked either. It was going, this is sort of who you need to speak to, go and chat to this person. I had to speak to the accountant, had to speak to the broker, had to speak to the lawyers and just make sure that I was touching base with the right people on my end so that I had all the necessary information to go, you know what, you can do this. And it wasn't just from Atlas saying you can do it. The accountant said we can do it. The broker said we can do it. Everyone was giving me the right sort of confidence. And that helped me to sort of take that leap, to be honest with you.
So I think let's move along into the next part of your journey, which was that you decided to make the leap. And you mentioned before, just a few moments ago, that you're a big picture guy. Like you like to see how it's all going to come together and understand how, all the little parts of that puzzle are going to form one really nice picture at the end of the day. For me, I look at it and I think that goal setting and planning are absolutely crucial to long-term success. And we talked a lot about that in episode 1 of this series, which was all about that goal setting. I guess I'm really curious to hear sort of your thoughts around goal setting and planning. And, we obviously took you through a pretty in-depth portfolio planning process. Sort of how you felt that aligned with what you wanted to see and what you needed to see, but probably more important, how that has shaped your perspective of what needs to happen for now and for the next 10 or 15 years.
The planning session was fantastic. I mean, we'd gone through a bunch when we were doing the phone calls and when we were going through everything. And then we had someone from your team reach out and actually have a proper in-depth face-to-face conversation about this is what this next sort of 12 to 18 months look like. This is what the next 5 years looks like. This is what the next 10 years looks like.
Shout out to Molly.
Now that gave me confidence to go, this first investment is going to be the building blocks for something that I can look forward to in my property investment journey. And it solidified sort of showing my wife as well, like, look, hey, this is not something that we're going to buy a property and it's get rich quick. It's a long-term investment. So having that in front of us, not just myself, in front of us, was very important. And it was very clear as well, which was good.
What were you going to say?
And I guess one of the other things to mention is whenever we build out the plans, right, we base it off conservative assumptions as well. So we show you how we can take you from where you are to where you want to get to without taking on unnecessary risk or just if the markets are operating under our expectations. But I know for yourself, like you're already saying to me, like, Luke, like I'm keen to get into the next one.
100%. I enjoyed the whole process so much. Like for me to go through that journey of purchasing a property with Atlas's guidance was, it was so good for me. Like it kept me motivated over these last sort of 3-4 months to be on top of a lot of things in my personal life, but also my professional life. So, I'd like to go again tomorrow if we could, but we're just going to be a little bit patient on that one. But
shortly.
Shortly for sure. So
no, that's great. So let's take another step forward, because you know I'm so cognizant of time, because I can see that in this episode, if we're not on time, this could turn into a 2-hour conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a step forward, right? So you've now looked at the portfolio plan and goal setting process, right? You've now worked through what your own goals are, and I'm not going to ask you to share them. I think that's very personal, and I think that it's you're obviously very happy with the direction that you want to be going in.
Yeah.
Now we start to move, and obviously you did this through us, but even if you didn't do this through us, like let's say you did it on your own, let's say you had the ability to do it by yourself, you'd still now be moving into this next stage, which is where my question's going, which is around area research.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you know what? I'm not going to say obviously, because this is about what you think, right?
Yeah.
I would say that I think a lot of people, because that's one of the most important things, is you want to be in the right location, because that's going to be performance, right?
Yeah.
So were you concerned about getting that right?
I feel that I was at first.
Yeah.
Until I got the area reports.
Yeah.
And the breakdown of what each area looked like.
Yeah.
So it only sort of clicked to me that I had no idea what I was looking at until I got the reports from you guys.
Yeah.
And that was a big eye opener for me, because you only know what you know. You can jump on real estate and go, hey, this looks great, and this house looks fantastic, and this kitchen looks fantastic, and all this sort of good stuff. You just don't know until you know. And that was a big one for me to go, all right, the information that I'm getting and the in-depth analysis of each area, really made me feel that the decision that I made was the right one. And I was confident in the information that I was getting, because there was things that I wouldn't have even known about the area until you spend hours researching that. So that was
it makes me think. It makes me think. Like I hear that a lot, right? Like whether I'm in one of the parts of media that I do, whether I'm just doing the normal day-to-day business stuff that I do, I hear that a lot. Hearing you say that, my question that I want to ask is, was there anything that surprised you in either like what am I trying to say? Was there anything that really surprised you around what was looked at, or how to maybe analyze like something was just a bit unexpected? And you thought,
there was a lot, like without giving anything away, there was a lot in that report that I just didn't expect to see. There were some surprises that go, that's some pretty decent information to know before you're going to even look at houses in that region. From what's expected in development, what's happening in the region, what's not happening in the region, what's happening in other regions that's not happening here. There was just so much there that I was like, I wouldn't have even thought about even considering that as information to take on board before purchasing a property. There was some decent nuggets in there.
That's really good, and I'll give the shout out back to other episodes, as I'm going to keep doing. I think it was episodes 3, 4, and 5, guys. So across those episodes, we really dove in deep into area research, macro factors, micro factors, street versus suburb level analysis. So please go back and listen to that. I mean, is there anything that you noticed in that? Don't give away the property side too much yet, because I'm going to come to that after. But, was there anything like in that due diligence piece that you were like, from an area point of view, that you sort of were like, I feel really comfortable, and I guess not necessarily trying to boost us up, but I guess more from the point of view of that now you've seen it, that you go, that was really good. I'm glad I got to see that.
Yeah, the way it was broken down. Once again, I don't want to give away too much, but the way the report was set out, for someone that looks at reporting all day, it made sense to me to look at. It even made sense for my wife to look at. So I guess the way the way it was set up for me to digest the information made me more confident, because I wasn't just looking at random numbers that go, that doesn't make sense to me. So
and I think props to you, Lockie. Obviously, you've spent a lot of time putting together those area reports. And look, we certainly appreciate that. A lot of the clients that we take on may not necessarily know or understand how to read and interpret raw data. But we also provide, like Lockie provides videos, actually walking through, breaking
the videos
down.
are good. I will say that. I didn't want to give too much away, but if you're talking about it, then the videos are fantastic. You just giving a really strong breakdown on why you feel that this area is a strong region to look into. And it wasn't, and I will say, I want to iterate, it wasn't anything that it's like, hey, you have to look at this area. This is it. It gives you a lot to think about as well. Make your own decisions based on the information that you're given. I've been a big believer on that. So that made me feel confident that, look at what we have to provide to you.
Yeah.
Give us your exact thoughts. And I did. And then that's where we started to deep dive into, I guess, what we...
And I'm really glad that you did as well, because I think something that just kills me when you go work with somebody, right, is when it just always feels like it's their way or the highway, or you feel like you may be bothering them to ask questions.
Yeah.
And it's something that I will say I've tried really hard to cultivate through the team to make sure that people don't feel like that.
Yeah.
But I think that just at a general level, like if you're working with someone and you feel like you're kind of bothering them, like have that conversation, because you don't want to feel like you're not asking the questions you want. And on the other side, like you might pay a service provider, but you also don't want them to feel like they're inconveniencing you, because then suddenly you just don't have a strong working relationship.
Sure.
And I think from everything that I've seen, you felt like you had a very strong working relationship.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and it came from me though. Like at the end of the day, I knew what I wanted. Yeah. So I could have happily just not replied to emails or texts or phone calls, but I was on the phone first for most of it. So, after I knew the decision was made and this is what I wanted to do, you would know, man, I was in on every little step that was there. I was involved, in on it. So it depends on how involved you really want to be, And
your feedback, man, like you were like, I loved it. Like I loved getting into the nitty gritty.
I wanted to learn. Like I think for me, it was a new thing to learn.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like with the clients that we take on, we have some clients that just want us to do the entire thing for them, build out their entire portfolio from start to finish.
Yeah.
But then we've also got some clients that want to do 1 or 2 properties through us, build that knowledge base up, and then perhaps maybe look at having a crack at it themselves.
Sure.
And if we can help empower them by, adding to that knowledge piece for them to be able to do that,
fantastic.
Then
But I guess to play, it's not really even devil's advocate, I guess just to look at a different way of it. I'm actually a big believer that the more educated somebody is, the better experience they'll have. Because I know some people think that sounds really counterintuitive. Like, surely if people know less, you can kind of pull the wool over their eyes and like just move it along. But I actually think, like, for example, now, like when we go back through the process for your next one, right? I know that because you now know so much more, when we tell you something, because your knowledge is now so much higher, you're going to know, like your spidey senses, you're going to know straight away if what we're saying is on or off, right? And if it's on, you're going to be like, sick, go. Guys, just go. Just go do
confidence.
it. Right?
For sure.
But so I'm actually a huge advocate of people being as informed as possible to make better decisions.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. And the information that I got was awesome. So
cool. Okay. Well, let's step forward. One more step, right? So we've now gone through the area side, right? There's obviously always concerns. You don't want to be in a bad area. You want to move it on, right?
Yep.
And now we get to probably the next most important thing for people, which is the property, right? Like, no one wants a lemon, right? No one wants a lemon, right? So after, you've been through that conversation about where to buy, I'd love to hear a bit about your experience on that property side, really around sort of analysis and research and due diligence, and like probably most importantly, like maybe how you would have gone about it versus how you ended up going about it, and that journey for you.
Yeah, so we obviously found the region that we're looking to get into. I was pretty adamant there was a certain region I wanted to get into. We couldn't really get there, but it was something pretty close in proximity. So I like the idea that we got close to the area I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
That was personal preference.
Yeah.
So we made that happen, which was awesome. And then I got presented the property, which was exciting. Yeah. I still remember the phone call.
It is, right?
It's exciting.
It's
I was
fun.
excited. Like I just wanted things to happen quick, but I didn't want it to happen as quick either, because for me it's like, it's not like buying a pair of shoes where you can be like, I don't know if I like them, I'm just going to give it back. Like you gotta invest and you've got to,
and then you got to deal with it.
You got to deal with it, right? So
there's no store credits with property.
No, nothing like that. So don't get me wrong. Like there was a lot of back and forth and a little bit of uncertainty and not too sure, but that's where I sort of wanted to come to you guys for the guidance and the reassurance that this property is what we think is going to be good for you. Well, now that I look at it, what was presented and what I ended up purchasing, I wouldn't want to look at any other sort of properties outside of that.
Yeah.
So and it made sense why I got presented this property. So we had that chat and I had a look and I was like, yeah, man, like what are we looking at?
Yeah.
And then I guess we just kept going from there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there any challenges?
Yeah, many. Yeah, I don't
Go
want.
on.
I
This
don't
is
want.
what's and all. This is like I
Yeah,
said,
I don't
like
want. I don't want
said,
to
you
lie.
know,
Look, I think it was more for me because I wanted an answer yesterday.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm the same. In fairness, I'm the
I
exact
wanted.
same.
Yeah, I wanted
so.
to answer yesterday. So there were times where I was waiting for stuff to come back from you guys, and we're waiting to hear back from the agent, and that final sort of closing the deal and getting there.
Just like staring at your phone. Waiting
Yeah, and look, and I think that comes more so. Yeah, there were challenges, but that was me not really understanding how long it could take to finalize a deal and get responses back, and not just from you guys, because I started to realize that you guys were waiting to hear for stuff back.
Yeah.
So I needed to go, all right, take a breather.
Yeah.
You're going to get an answer. Don't be so impatient about it. But yeah, just making sure communication was solid, which it always was. But like I said, I wanted to know the answer.
Yeah.
If I'd get an email, I'd be straight on the burner.
Yeah.
And that was me going, just take your time. So in the early stages, there definitely were challenges.
Yeah.
In the middle stages, there were challenges, and in the end stages, there was probably the biggest challenge.
Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah. So we settled, and the day of settlement from the pre-settlement inspection, the tenants moved out.
Yeah. Unexpectedly.
Unexpectedly, and that was no one's fault besides the agent that was looking after the property, right?
Yeah.
And just the lack of communication,
Yeah.
and all the assumptions under the sun led us to not having a tenant the day we took the property on, which was stressful, man. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you most stressed about with that?
I think the idea of purchasing the property the way it was was the fact that we're going to have tenants in there.
Yeah.
When someone moves out, you have to really look at the property in a different light, and that's what needed to happen.
Yeah.
So there was going to be a bit of an extra outlay that stressed me out a little bit.
Yeah.
And going, I'm going to now have to deal with that. Obviously, I had all the guidance in the world.
Yeah.
But once you settle, the property's yours.
Yeah.
And this is what people need to understand. You are now a property owner.
Yeah.
And you have to now make big boy decisions. So making those decisions was quite stressful because, the property is not right next door. It's in another state. So going through that was challenging.
So what was the resolution? How did the story kind of end up?
Yeah. Look, Chanel and Luke helped out with a little bit of compensation, you would say.
Yeah.
We're going back and forth with lawyers and all that sort of good stuff. But ultimately, it got to the point where I was like, all right, the worst could have happened.
Yeah.
And I had to see a silver lining.
Yeah.
Right? And going, we can now get my own tenants in,
Yeah.
people that I know. I can do a little bit of work on the property to go, I've done a bit of a reset. I know where the property is truly at. We've got a clear slate, and let's sort of start again.
Yeah.
So it took some time, about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. You have to make the repayments without any income.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
You budget for all that kind of stuff, and I'd factored a fair bit of that in. And just spending money on something you've just purchased was a little bit daunting, but we made it work.
Yeah.
I had some great guidance. I was a little bit annoyed. I feel like I took my frustrations out sometimes on Luke and Chanel.
He's a good punching bag sometimes.
But you come to realize that, and even now after dealing with trades and my now property manager, you just have to wait to hear back from someone.
It takes time sometimes, doesn't it?
Took a week to get just a basic quote back, and you're just come on, man. We got tenants in. They're there. Yeah.
So you've now seen almost the worst thing that can happen, or a pretty bad thing that can happen, which is that at the end of the day, tenants are people, and they can up and leave, right? And that's it, right? There's obviously certain things that are flow-on effects from that, right? And they can't maybe they have to pay obviously fees and things like that. But but ultimately it's their choice, right?
Right.
So you went through it having the support from a team like us.
Yeah.
How do you feel about having that support versus if you had gone out and found the property by yourself and then you had to deal with that by yourself?
I don't really want to think about it, to be honest. I think I don't know where I would have gone.
Well, you've already lost your hair, mate. So
Yeah, it's all gone, mate, to be honest. I don't have much more to lose, to be fair.
That's good, Luke.
I'm going to be honest. I think I'll say it back to my wife. She was super supportive through all of it.
Yeah.
So to answer your question about not having someone to lean on, in regards to a professional property team, would have been crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But then having the right support at home was awesome.
Yeah.
I would go home stressed out about it. And my wife said, all right, well, is it going to hurt us? And I said, not really. And we'll get through it.
Yeah.
I just don't know where I would have gone about trying to find a new management team. You know, we ended up shifting management teams. Would I have trusted that current management team? Probably not. And considering it's in another state, I just wouldn't have known where to start. I'm sure I would have figured it out. Don't get me wrong, but just the back and forth and waiting to hear about someone and going to look at the property and change over keys and all that sort of stuff, it wouldn't have been smooth. I can guarantee that.
I think it's really interesting to actually hear you talk about your wife in this. And first, I think it's awesome. You guys are clearly such a great team, right?
Yeah.
But I actually think it's really nice to hear that, not just from, a lovey-dovey point of view, but from the point of view of, this is why it actually is really important that when you're looking at investing with a most often a spouse, but it could be a friend, a family member, it could be a sister, your brother, it could be whoever it is. I think this, like the way I'm hearing you talk about it, is exactly why it's so important that everyone is on the same page, because, people have roles in relationships, right? And again, I'm not just talking about like a spousal relationship. I'm talking about, two brothers, two sisters, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to understand what your role is in I guess in this context, we're talking about like a property or investing journey, but what your role is, and then making sure that you have the support of the other person and being on the same page and just having all those things worked out, because we see it, right? We see it very often. I won't even say very often, more often than I'd like, where someone's clearly leading it, and then what happens in the back end is that maybe they've come on to work with us, for example. They're going down the journey, and then let's say we're showing them properties, and we keep getting met with like resistance and no and this and that, and we actually find out it's nothing to do with the person who's been the main contact. It's been all to do with the person who hasn't been, who at the end of the day, whether or not they're a big part or not, they're still always there, even if it's in the background,
100%.
Right? So I guess I just want to call out and say I think it's fantastic. I think it's so important.
Yeah, I had look, don't get me wrong, my wife let me lead the charge, but at the end of the day, it's our money, mate. And we're investing for our future, and it's her house just as much as it is mine. We're in this together. So, Luke sort of every stop, do you need to get your wife in on it? Do you want me to jump in and have a conversation? And she gave me the right of way to make the decisions, but everything I did, I went back to her. And if I was met with resistance, I made it quite clear. The fact that I got her on side and now we're property owners, I think that is more rewarding than anything else. We're finally in the market. We have a property, and it's something that we wanted to work towards together. It's been super rewarding.
Congrats, man. It's really, the hardest one is always your first.
Big time.
And I know parts of your journey that obviously we're not going to talk about in the podcast. And I just think it's so good. So I want to say congratulations.
Thanks very much. I'm pumped.
And I guess kind of like looking back in hindsight after going through the process, like what are some of the things that you kind of feel that you learn about yourself?
Just be resilient, mate. Be super.
Big one, isn't it?
Be resilient. You gotta build some mental callous when you're going through something like this. So it definitely leveled me up in my sort of personal life and in my professional development. Purchasing a property is a big move. And the way we structured the purchase was a little bit different. And understanding how to purchase a property in a different manner. And going through that whole process, I learned so much about that as well. And you have to stay on top of it. It's just not something that you can buy and just forget about. It is something that is going to be ongoing.
But I just feel that you were so laser focused.
Had to be
for the next one now, though.
And it had to be, and I will have to be. And I'm glad you said that. The knowledge you guys have given me to purchase a second property has been awesome. It's been fun, man. It's been fun, and eager to go again for sure.
So from your perspective, if you were talking to someone, and when I say if you were, the reality is you're talking to thousands of people right now. They're just not in the room with us, right? But if someone's on the fence about using, a property professional, a buyer's agency team, or the way that we think about it is, we're an investment specialist team. What would you say to someone who's on the fence about getting that help?
Think about the worst case scenario when purchasing the property, and then what you do next and where you go from there. And if you don't have an answer for that, then find someone that's going to give you those answers. Because I went through it and I wouldn't have had the answers. Like I said, I probably would have figured it out. But the amount of time and effort that goes into even finalizing a property is hours and hours and hours. It's a full-time job, mate. And I will say that not just to sell you guys, but I felt that I was going home and spending hours in front of my computer just figuring out what I needed to do on my end to make sure that we could purchase a property without having to find the property, do all the due diligence, make sure everything's all kosher.
Yeah.
It's something that you should really, really consider. If you don't think you have the time, the effort, and the answers, you're going to need someone to help you to get into the market for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Because I personally speak to dozens and dozens of investors every week, and there's so many people that are kind of on the fence, right?
For
like
sure.
they speak to other companies, like they hear these conflicting ideas, different investment philosophies, and they just get in a position where they just got analysis paralysis. They don't do anything.
Yeah, and
right?
it depends on your risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Mate. Like, are you prepared to lose $100,000 if you don't do it right?
Yeah.
If you are, then fantastic. And
Yeah.
if you're not, then
Then it's also understanding that opportunity cost if you just sit on the
correct,
sidelines
right?
for
So you wait
12
months,
right?
and I waited years and years and years, right? Where I go, I'm not ready. Finances, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for that.
Don't think about what the property would have cost you if you had done it a year or two ago.
Yeah, you can't, right? Yeah. So and I haven't, because I'm just trying to think about what it's going to do for me in the next 3 to 5 years. So future pace as much as possible in a positive manner and let go of what's happened in the past. But it's just like a PT, mate. You're either going to go to the gym and try and do it yourself, and if you're not getting the results, you get a PT.
Yeah.
If you've tried to look for something in the market and you haven't figured it out in,
I like that analogy.
well, it's the truth, right? It's if you haven't figured it out in 3, 6, 12 months, you're going to need someone to at least help you. And then you get a PT, and like you said, you might work with them 12, 18 months, 2 years, and you go, hey, I sort of know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to have a crack.
I'm going to run on from here.
But then I'm sure, you could reach out and go, hey, this is my challenge at the moment. I'm sure you guys would be able to help someone out. But
100%.
that's the way I sort of looked at it. I've always been the big believer of if you have a massive knowledge gap, go to an expert.
Yeah.
Right. So
to wrap it up, where's your property journey go from here? What's next?
Yeah, let's see what this reval looks like in the next sort of 12 months.
Yeah.
Keep working really, really hard.
Yeah.
Keep stacking some money so we could go again, and just constantly reevaluate what it's going to look like with a second.
I like what you said there, because this is what I noticed from the most successful investors is that they don't just now go, you know what, I've bought my first property, I've got the hardest one done, and I'm going to take my foot off the gas and I'm just going to let the property do the heavy lifting. The really successful ones, it's they start from scratch, right? Like we're both big sports fans. I know you are as well, right? The way I think about it is like cricket, right? You hear people, they go and you end a session or you get your ton, and then the first comment everyone makes that's done that test cricket is they go, all right, I'm now back to zero, and I start again, even though you're on 100, right? And I feel like that's the mentality that you're bringing, and that's what we see the most successful investors do.
But I also think the fact that you've structured your purchase in a way that will allow you to continue to scale is why you're also laser focused. Whereas some people, they'll buy a property, right? And even if that property grows, right, they've got 200, 300,000 of equity. If they've structured things in a way where like you can't really tap into it, even though you've seen that grow, there's other things that you potentially could do from a restructuring perspective. But a lot of people get stuck, right? And then they lose the motivation, and then that's where the drive dies off.
So definitely having that structure has given me confidence that if all stars align, then we could go again. And that's what I'm keen to sort of look at doing, to be honest.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
Thanks,
awesome.
man.
Thank you for your trust as well, and your continued trust. And for everyone tuning in, if you've loved listening to Aaron's story, Aaron has done exceptionally well for himself. He's got so much more to go. And Aaron is just one of the many stories that we have from clients that we have worked with. So if you're looking at starting your portfolio or building it / scaling it, please come and have a chat with myself, Luke, and the rest of the team at Atlas Property Group, atlaspropertygroup.com.au. Drop an inquiry in and make sure that you're taking proactive action exactly the way that Aaron has, because as we move towards the end of the year, the people who are really focused on setting themselves up for success are not waiting until 2026. So make sure you jump in and take that action right away.
Mate, it's been fun. Where are we going from here, though?
Where are we going from here?
Last episode of the series. Come on, it's been fun.
All right, where we're going from here?
You haven't told me. Yeah,
I know. You're literally finding out as well.
You're all about planning, mate.
I know.
What's the plan?
Well, mate, I have the plan. I just haven't shared the plan. We're coming back for season 2. We're coming back for season 2. So we will be back. So we will be back for the next season of Pathway to Property. So until then, Thank you for listening in. Thank you for your support. And we can't wait to be back with you shortly.
Thanks for listening, guys.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.